Hey Kermit, I just got the new PS5.
You you got the new PS5?
Yeah, man, it's got all kinds of crazy graphics and super fast load times, and I can't wait to...
What the fuck are you thinking? Fool! I can't believe you went out and spent 500 of your hard-earned dollars on the PlayStation 5 when the Xbox has so many better features. Have you ever heard of the Xbox Game Pass? $15 and you have access to so many good games. And the Xbox Series S is only $300, $200 less. And you can still get access to all of the fantastic games on the Xbox. Can't believe you do this to me. Listen, I'm gonna set you up. I got an idea. We're gonna return your PlayStation 5, and then we're gonna return your PlayStation 5, and we're gonna set you up with an Xbox. I know you got plenty of Xbox games physically, so we'll figure out how to get yourself an Xbox Series X. Listen, the name doesn't matter. The Xbox Series is a dumb name, but we're gonna figure it out. I know a guy. His name's Craig. I know him. He's pretty nice. He deals in game consoles, specifically Xbox. He's pretty cool. I got you covered. I can probably get like 20% discount for you. Anyway, what's your thoughts on the current world geopolitics?
Dark Souls, the Japanese video game that came out in 2011. Made by the illustrious and seductive Hidetaka Miyazaki. I want to have his children. He has made my favorite game series, after all. See, everyone talks about how hard it is, but it's really the soul behind it, along with the mechanics, design, and fairness that really makes it stand out. It's also really hard. But with all these successful games, like Elden Ring, which just released, you may think Dark Souls is where it all started. But oh boy, you'd be wrong. It was the original PS3 exclusive title released in 2009 by From Software, Ninja Blade. No, or maybe it was Demon Souls. I don't know. And you see, with the widely available and extremely reasonably priced PS5, Sony decided to remake the game for their new system. Let me just get a copy of each real quick. Okay, for real. This game is a masterpiece, yet it's also the first of its kind, and while I do love it, it definitely has some kinks. Not the foot kind, no. So when they said a remake was being released, I couldn't help but get a little excited. Of course, Dark Souls 1 Remastered was more of a glorified port, however this remake was being done by a completely different team, which could mean good or bad things, but one thing's for sure, I'm about to show you what's better, what's worse, and things that I think could have been improved. First, I'm going to talk about the visuals of the game, general graphics, and what I think of each level. Second, I'll get to the actual gameplay, controls, mechanics, bosses, etc. And finally, I'll be talking about the audio design, mainly music and voice acting. If you've played both games, do note that these are my opinions, and you will disagree. Once the video is done, please leave a very toxic and hateful comment down below.
A Burger King or something. We can just go down to the Burger King and have a nice chat about.
Now, how does the original game run? 30 frames per second? Pitiful. My crippled grandfather could run faster than that. This is how slow 30 FPS looks to the modern gamer. Now look at the PS5 version. It's running at least as fast as I do from my taxes. But yeah, it runs at 60 FPS, pretty cool. Well, since we're on performance, let's compare load times. Wow, my crippled grandfather died in that time. And that's the amount of time it took for my wife to leave me. The intro cutscene is not very faithful. The initial landscape shots are mostly identical, but everything else is completely different. The remake uses mostly generic still shots that don't even resemble the originals, while the original has a lot of sweeping and spinning shots around the characters. The environments are also super lazy in the remake, as they just reuse areas from the actual levels, when the original has unique areas for the cutscenes. It's retarded. The second slot in your lineup of equipped items and spells is now displayed on the main HUD. The durability meter on your HUD has also been added. Spell icons now resemble the scrolls from Dark Souls rather than the undecipherable hieroglyphics from the original. Each spell's animation is now shown to you when you're purchasing them. The fire reduction stat when blocking is now finally displayed on every weapon. The GUI for leveling up is now pretty much identical to later games. You add up each individual stat and then pay for all of them, rather than paying for each one separately. When picking your starting class at the beginning of the game, it now actually shows what equipment you have, and not just how big and smart they are. The build-up meter for status effects is still not shown, despite the fact that it's been shown in every later game, so I don't think it'd be very hard to add. The character creation menu has a lot more options now. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, yes, 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 yes. The game does not give you an "Are you sure?" prompt anymore when upgrading, for some reason. I know it's just a minor thing, but it can potentially cause some reversible mistakes when upgrading, since there's different upgrade paths you can go, and if you go down the wrong path, you can't reverse it.
There's a missing point!
The camera zooms into characters' faces while you're conversing with them now, so now you can get a very good look at their beautiful, is it just me, or does everyone look like they're made out of rubber? Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like, it almost looks cartoonish. Which, I mean, like, it doesn't look bad outright. It just looks off for this game. Like, you know, this very gritty, depressing, demon-ridden world, but it has all these cartoony character models. It's like, I don't know. I don't like it. Oh god, Patches, wait, please! Don't fuck my wife and daughter, please, no! The facial animations also look really unsettling to me. Like, they're so exaggerated. No one moves their mouth like this. The other games don't even have any animations for their mouth moving, or if they do, they're just like really generic, just mouth flaps. So I mean, they really didn't have to animate it at all, and I would have rather they just didn't, because clearly they're not very good at it. Every item in your inventory is now shown the additive of how many you have in terms of its weight, rather than just showing you what one singular one weighs, which is good because I can't count. Your equip weight percentage is now shown, along with the numbers turning red whenever you are heavy and fat rolling, because you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid. Go kill yourself. For some reason, the names of the items turpentine and white sticky stuff were changed to pine resin and white sticky slime. Pine resin kind of makes sense, because I guess it's supposed to resemble the Dark Souls name for those items. But white sticky slime, that's just the same thing, except it's like 1% less sexual. Stockpile Thomas shows your inventory and his inventory at the same time, rather than having them separated into individual tabs. However, this means that a lot less information is shown, and so I kind of just wish they wouldn't have changed it, or better yet, just could done something different than both of them. They're both shit. Honestly, the entire inventory could have just used a redesign. I don't understand why they didn't simply just copy or at least imitate Dark Souls 3's inventory. It fits so much more on the screen, but still has everything you need. Pretty much all of the big, flashy, the giant text that appears on the screen when you do something cool, like, oh, you beat the guy, they changed it. So now instead of the demon was destroyed, now it says demon vanquished. You revived was changed to body restored. You regained lost soul was changed to souls retrieved. And honestly, these changes are so like, they mean nothing. This basically didn't change anything, but I still hate it, because why was it changed? Like, it ruins the charm of the original. It's like, sure, you regained lost soul is not exactly the best grammatical way to put it, but it also, that's just how they put it. And you changing it is shitting on whoever translated it and decided to do it really literal instead of making it reasonable. And so, you know what? You're unreasonable for making it reasonable. Fuck you. Animations for dodge rolling have been changed. And interestingly, in the remake, there is 2 different animations depending on which gender you pick. However, the original didn't have 2 different animations for different genders. It was the same for both, because I don't think your gender qualifies for you dodging differently. So see, that's pretty sexist if you ask me. But yeah, I don't really like the new animations as much as the original. It's like, the original animation is actually surprisingly similar to basically every game after it. So the fact that it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It feels loose, if that makes sense. Like, there's not a lot of weight to your jump. Same with like even with fat rolling, where you fall really slowly. Like, it doesn't even look like a different animation. It looks like they just slowed it down. So it doesn't look nearly as good. What do you know? This game made in 2009 has better animation than fancy PS5 game. Ha. Sound effects were added to your character, like walking and rolling while you're in soul form. I know this is technically sound, not visuals, but I'm not really covering sound effects in the sound portion, so I'm just putting it here. But still, in the original, there were no sounds while you were walking around, while you're in soul form, and that's because you're a soul. Like, you're a spirit. You're not actually there. It's meant to, like, it's meant to be unsettling because it's like you're dead, right? So the fact that they changed that is kind of bruh. Because did they miss the entire point of what soul form is? You're like, what? Look at the funny cat picture for the cat ring. They literally just took a picture of one of the devs' cats. It's so cute. What? They changed it? There's a photo mode now. Riposte animations look pretty scuffed in the original. However, now they're way too showy, and they take about as long as a loading screen from the original game. One thing I really wish they would have added is an indication for areas that you can climb on. Because if you've played this game before, you know it's really inconsistent where you can and can't climb. It's like, it's only in very specific locations. But I just wish that in the remake they could have added some sort of, like, maybe like a certain texture or like a certain wall type that you can always climb over, or maybe like a glowy like effect like the items have, and maybe like, or even like just a button prompt that comes up that's like press circle to climb. Just anything, like, come on. Okay, but now I want to talk about the environments of each specific level. Starting with level 1. I bet you didn't expect that one, did you? Well, I think this area undoubtedly looks really good. I'm not going to disagree that it looks really pretty. The problem is that it doesn't really look like Demon Souls. Like, it looks realistic, but this is also a world where dragons, demons, giant mechanical spiders, women, slimes, and living gargoyles exist, so I don't think that really matters. I also think the graphics is trying to be realistic. It's a little uninteresting. I'm playing this video game in a fictional fantasy world because I don't want to deal with real life right now. All FromSoft games tend to have color palettes dedicated to each area. Demon Souls was no different. Level 1 in particular used a lot of dark greens and yellows. It made the world almost look sick and dying, which I can assure you in Miyazaki's vision was intentional. This world is meant to be one on the brink of dying due to the demon invasion. So you can't just make everything look all nice and say it's all peaches and rainbows. So basically the area is very detailed, nice looking, but I think it misses the mark a bit with the original game's intentions. On some semi-positive notes, the enemy animations are pretty faithful. I'm not going to go over every single one because for the most part they're all the same, and that's fine. As I said before, the character models themselves look a little weird, but we won't worry about that right now. The fire effects look like dog shit, but I'm sure that won't be a problem later on. I don't like that the bridge where the dragon breathes fire, he has a lingering flame effect on the bridge, but that lingering flame doesn't actually hurt you. I feel like it's a little confusing at first. Not a big deal, but still. However, that also is evened out by the fact that I do like that before the dragon breathes fire, you can see on the bridge there's like a black layer of like charred ash. And you can tell where the fire will start, so that way you can stand right at the edge of where the hitbox is, and then run, so it's easier to get to the other side. For some reason, this one area in 1-3 is completely overhauled. I don't know why. I guess it looks kind of cool. This area, I would say, has the same problem as the last in terms of color palette, but maybe to a lesser degree. It mainly feels too brightly lit. The originals were moody and dimly lit, especially in the underground areas. But hey, now we get to see those fancy PS5 fire effects in action. Oh god, why is it so red? I genuinely think I've never seen fire graphics this ugly in my entire life. It's so damn bright red that I feel like my eyes are going to bleed every time I look at them. Fire doesn't look like this. I know the original's fire wasn't the best, but at least it looked like fire. This stuff just looks like extremely thick red paint fumes. I might want to huff some paint after looking at this travesty. For the color palette, I don't want to waste your time. I'm just going to say that this level and level 5, basically I think the same thing as I do with level 2. It's just a little too brightly lit, but for the most part it's the same. I can tell you, however, that the fire effects still look awful, and they also didn't recolor them to match the rest of the color palette like in the original. And then the magic effects look pretty much just as bad, except now instead of red paint fumes, it's neon blue paint fumes. And you can't tell me these particle effects look good, just look at how they ruined the Moonlight Sword! If you've played this game, you probably remember that there are keys on the walls that you have to obtain to progress, and they were kind of hard to see in the original, since unlike other items, they didn't have the distinct bright white glow. So there's no real way to assume you can even grab them if you notice them at all. I was really expecting the remake to fix this, but no, they're just as invisible as my penis. Alright, level 4, let's go! Ah! You know how I was complaining about the other levels being too bright? Well, now it's too dark! It's rainy and thundering and overcast cloudy, when the original was partially cloudy at most, bruh. I get that it's the home of the so-called Storm King, but again, I don't think that was what the original was going for. What, you think that From Software didn't know how to add rain? Because I think if they wanted to add rain, they would have added rain, but they didn't. And overall, I'd say the color palette here suffers as much as with level 1, with trying to be too realistic. Oh boy, the best swamp From Software has ever made. At least this place looks as gross as I remember. This is the only place I don't really have any big complaints about visually, outside of things I've already mentioned, so it looks like shit, and that's good. The Nexus, honestly, really looks off to me. Like, if you've noticed, the lights and the colors are just completely wrong. It's like it's not like it looks bad, it looks kind of cool, but it's just, it doesn't look like the Nexus. I don't know. I don't like the decisions that were made in the lighting here.
Well, there's cesspool, but they people on Twitter seem pretty nice all around. I've never really...
Probably the most notable change in this entire remake, which is kind of sad, is that you can now roll in any direction you point the stick while you're locked onto an enemy. Of course, the happiness couldn't last because, see, there's a glitch that I like to call the Q roll. And see, what happens is whenever you Q the input for a roll, like if you're in the middle of another action but you want to roll next, the game sometimes seems to get confused about which direction you want to go. And so sometimes the game gets it wrong and you go the completely wrong direction and you die. What's interesting is I've actually experienced a similar glitch in Bloodborne, although it happens significantly less frequently, so I can't really say it's super comparable. And I don't really understand why this is even a problem, considering Dark Souls 2 and up does not have this problem at all, and you can roll in any directions. Couldn't they at least allow me to roll in the swamp? How am I supposed to fight anything? I also must say, queuing inputs in general feels a lot more unresponsive than before, which is, you know, that's good. You do get much better vertical tracking for your attacks, which is nice for trying to catch the little crystal lizards, because they're so short and tiny and cute.
And I must murder them for their upgrade materials.
There is an input in this game which is functionally the same as the kick from Dark Souls. You know that move that you always accidentally do and it's completely useless 90% of the time? Well, in this game it's the same, except instead of a kick, it's a push. And you activate it the same way, where you press the stick up really fast and then press the attack. And see, this was already kind of annoying in the original game, as it is in every Dark Souls game. But in this game, it's so much easier to accidentally do. Like, why did they make it more sensitive? Like, did they think people needed to do this more? No, people don't want to do it. They should have just gotten rid of it. One of the big changes that was made in terms of balancing was the healing grass was made to heavier to avoid hoarding. However, this does not solve the problem in any way, because you just get more vitality, or wear the ring that gives you more carry capacity, and you just carry more. Like, it doesn't work. And you can still carry. They actually did add a limit to each item for how many you can have at once, like ignoring the carry capacity. However, these are still so high that it doesn't matter. See, what they should have done is just completely removed the carry system altogether with the weight. It should just only be equip weight. We don't need the carry weight. And then all they had to do was just limit the number of grass you could carry to maybe like 15 or 20 at most of each grass. You know, you obviously workshop what the number is. I don't know exactly what would be the best way to balance it, but I'm just saying. It would make a lot more sense if each individual item had an individual limit of weight, just like Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne. And Stockpile Thomas would still be useful, because he could carry the things that you couldn't, because you have a limit on certain things. And so he could still be there and be wholesome like he always is. Well, there's at least one thing they did add from the other games that was good, and that's that you can send any of the items you can't carry back to Thomas through Amazon Prime drone delivery services. You can actually use multiple soul items at once to get the money that you need, and it doesn't kick you out of the menu, so you aren't punished for hoarding money like me. I don't understand why durability is still a thing in this game. Like, it costs like 1 rupee, 1 Indian rupee, to repair all of your weapons, and then they have more than enough durability for like most of the game. So it's like, why is it like this? Why is Dark Souls 2 the only game to have durability actually matter? There is a new menu that pops up whenever you press What do you call this button? It's the giant retardedly big pad that's on the center of the PlayStation controller. I don't know what you call it. I don't know why it's a button, but that's the button. Anyway, you press that button and it pulls up a menu where you can actually pull up a few more quick items that you can equip. And then you can also access gestures, messages, and that's also where you get to the photo mode. And I know gestures are in the original game, but I won't lie, I have no idea how to access them in that version. Yeah, you can sprint on ladders now. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Upgrade materials still require obscene amounts of grinding. The first problem is later tier upgrades still require the lower tier materials along with the higher ones. Why not just require the higher tiers? Most materials are dropped from the enemies, which is fine on its own, but the fact that you can't get there anywhere else is dumb, especially since some of them can be so rare. Like that stupid goddamn skeleton that is the only way to get one of the pure stones. Parries and backstabs are still instantaneous, making PvP more cancerous than a Blizzard chat room. Magic still doesn't require stamina to cast, so it's super easy to spam and tends to be a little overpowered. In fact, overall, the magic just needs rebalancing. Miracles in particular need some more useful spells, along with buffing Wrath of Gods, as it costs way too much magic for a very pitiful amount of damage. You should be able to equip spells to either an Arcstone or an unkillable NPC, like the Maiden in Black, because having them be the trainers means if they die under any circumstances, you are locked out of even changing your spell equip load at all. I honestly expected them to maybe at least add some way to sell your items that you don't want, so you can get a little money back for it, but, you know, again, that would take effort, so. The AI for player NPCs is still more retarded than you are right now. They could have made the dogs a little more reasonable. Certain armors are still locked to certain genders. For what reason can I, as an independent woman, not wear this pair of shoes? Fast traveling can be done from any Arcstone now, not just the ones in the Nexus. I do wish that you could actually just rest at an Arcstone for when you need to respawn enemies for grinding. I mean, you can just teleport to the Arcstone you're already at, but it'd still be nice if you could just do it like you do in the later games. You can now choose a starting gift when beginning a game, like you can in later games. Although the only one that's really useful is the ring that you normally have to give up a much better item for. Because normally you'd have to give up the sword that increases your luck to get the ring that increases your luck. But the ring that increases your luck doesn't increase your luck as much as the sword that you gave up for it, so it's just pointless normally. So I guess Og? You can now actually alter your appearance whenever you want after the game starts at the Statue of Reflection. It costs a little bit too much money, but you know, I guess that's just what plastic surgery costs nowadays. Although the biggest missed opportunity for the Statue of Reflection is the ability to respec your stats. How did they not think of this? They're insane. There's also the mirrored world option, which I don't know why that even exists. I don't even have to show you footage of me doing it, because I can just do this. And that's all it is. It's literally, that's all it does. Why is this a feature? A gold coin item was added, which gives you more luck for a brief amount of time. Which may sound useful for the grinding that I talked about before. However, you have to grind a shit ton to get this one item, so it's completely pointless. I experienced one glitch in the remake where I joined someone for co-op, and the boss music and health bar never showed up. One thing that's nice is dying will always take you to the last checkpoint that you warped to or from, rather than just taking you to whichever one is a part of the area you're in. Why are crossbows a thing? They do no damage and they can't be upgraded. At least now the aiming reticle when using a bow is not placed 10 miles to the left of where it should be. Bows also don't consume nearly enough stamina, so it's just really easy to spam shoot. The cutscene right before entering the arena to the final boss still completely locks you out of leveling, and you can't level at all until you defeat Phalanx again in New Game Plus. New Game Plus is also still completely forced on you once you beat the game, rather than giving you an option to go into New Game Plus now or continue later. Certain charge attacks from enemies do way too many ticks of damage. Why is there a deluxe edition that gets me a bunch of weapons that are completely useless because they can't be upgraded? I'm glad I didn't buy that version, because holy shit, it costs more than my wife. At least Elden Ring's deluxe edition is honest about telling you that it doesn't give you hardly anything. The trophy/achievements are at least better now. Now you don't have to get every single upgrade path to get a platinum. They even added some extra little challenges you can do, although most of them are pretty easy. There are a lot more options and settings to customize the game to your liking. Now I want to make a point about the general level design of the entire game. It's obviously very good, but I have some issues with it, and I think the remake could have fixed it. One of the main things is the levels tend to consist of a lot of narrow corridors and bridges. It's like, I need room to roll my fat ass around like Sonic the Hedgehog. Some areas like 5-1 basically punish you for not having a shield, because otherwise you fall into the eternal abyss of shit water if you don't have a shield, because you can't roll to the left or right. The collision for that one dead dragon at the beginning of 1-4 is a bit better at least, so you can actually attack those stupid crossbow-wielding pieces of shit. World tendency is still awful to set up. The only reliable way to bring your tendency down to black is to commit suicide while in human form. And the only way to bring it up to white is to kill bosses. So if you want a pure white world, you have to kill a boss, kill yourself somewhere else, and then rinse and repeat. And it's shit. I really feel like they could have changed the way this worked at least a little. Like, one idea is, like, maybe there's an NPC that you go to and you have to bring him specific items, like rare items that can shift whichever world you want, rather than having it tied to bosses and dying. And ironically, this is actually not an issue anymore in the PS3 version, because the PS3 version, as you know, the servers have shut down, but there's a fan server you can connect to called the Arkstones, and with that server you can customize whatever world tendency you want by just placing certain messages on the ground. So world tendency actually isn't an issue in the original PS3 version, so bruh. That elevator in 1-4 still takes longer than what it took to resurrect my grandfather. A shortcut to the boss was actually added in 1-4, which is sort of useful, although it doesn't skip a whole lot, and there's a lot of other levels where a shortcut would have been a lot more useful. So, out of all the levels to put a shortcut, this was the worst one. And in case you're wondering, no, there's not a single other shortcut that was added in this remake.
You know, I heard they got this special little tool called a deboner, where you can debone the fish.
Oh, come on, he's trying his best. What, did you expect me to bully him? He's fine. Maybe the remake could have given him a few more attacks to make him a bit more interesting, but, I mean, otherwise he's fine. I love slaughtering his children. Now, this boss is just annoying. His stomps are slow, but leave such a giant AoE that you have to back away super early in advance. And 90% of this fight is just you hit him twice, back away, wait for him to stop, and then rinse and repeat. And then his jumps to gain distance, for some reason, turn his entire body into a hitbox that does way too much damage. And it's kind of fast compared to any other attack, so you always get hit by it if you're behind him. Like, it's not really what I'd call fair or reasonable at all. And then, of course, the magic particles make me want to huff paint. Let's go and start with the positive, since this is the only actual positive change they made to any boss. His attacks that sends you to the back of the arena is a lot more distinguishable in the fact that it's a slow sludge of oil that follows you, rather than him just breathing out fire that you can't really tell what it's doing. So hey, that's kind of nice, I guess. Although it is still a spider. And spiders are probably one of the worst creatures ever conceived by God. And I hate God. Overall, the fight is still annoying. His web is way too hard to see and way too fast. You always get hit by it. And then it just guarantees you get hit by his next fireball. His melee attacks are still pathetic, and somehow the collision is still just as scuffed as the original. And it's one of those fights where it's just a dodge until you get a very wide and obvious opening, which is just not very interesting. The fire! Okay, first of all, he has the same problem that Tower Knight does with his jumpies, which are instant, and they're meant to give him mobility, but they do damage! Why do they do damage? And then the AoE is actually a lot harder to discern where it stops and starts than in the original. In the original, it's a very clear sphere of just like an AoE. Like it's not meant to be anything other than a sphere, but in this one, it's actually like a burst of flames, which means you can't tell where the hitbox is, even though I'm pretty sure the hitbox is the same. Although at the same time, I feel like it's a little bigger because I find it harder to dodge. In the original, as long as you dodge to the right, like about when the attack goes off, you'll avoid it. But in the original, it feels so finicky. It's like I can't figure out how to dodge it. I don't, like, consistently. Even though the original, I could do it pretty consistently. If you think about it, this fight is basically just Metal Gear Solid, except really shit. You have to wait for him to look away so you can get out of cover, but there's also debris in the way that you have to break, which takes way too long, and then you get punched. However, one change was made in the remake that I will not understand. He has a very clear tell during the second half of the fight that tells you when to go, and I can tell they have this here because if he just looks to one side, he'll see you on the other side, and I don't think they really wanted to program it to where it was like they didn't want this to be super advanced. They clearly did not put much effort into this, which is fine because it's shit anyway. So it just made it simple. You could see when he looked up, he would look up, and you would go. It was easy, but that's not here anymore. And so once you get on the very far end on his right, I can't tell when to go because he's kind of always looking at you. It almost seems like. I think you still just go whenever he's looking to his right, but that doesn't make any sense. It's dumb. The only thing I'll give this boss is he looks cool, but I mean the original looked just as cool because he was really big, so they could still put detail into it. So I don't. Okay, first she lays traps on the floor, which unless you have a photographic memory, you're not going to remember where they are because they go invisible. And they're not even much of a threat because they don't do damage, they just stun you, and you might get shot by your pitiful piss blasts. And the boss barely fights otherwise. And then even when the copies get involved, it's like they barely can do anything. And it's not even hard to find the real one, because the real one is the only person that won't have its own health bar up, because it uses the boss health bar. I do understand this one doesn't really seem fixable without a complete do-over of the boss. But of course that would take effort, and the remake devs clearly don't know what that is. This fight is actually a really fun concept in my opinion. It was just badly executed. It's not even because it was badly designed, they just didn't program it. The boss can sometimes stay in the air for what feels like minutes. Anytime it so much as grazes the edge of this very thin bridge, it will fly away and then come back. It won't attack you or anything while it flies away, it just wastes your time. Simply making the bridge a bit wider and making it so the man-eater immediately flies back onto the bridge after falling off would completely solve this issue. I don't even mind that it's a gank fight. They're surprisingly manageable 2-on-1 actually. They're both also very prone to glitches. Remake or no, sometimes they just get stuck in one place and their AI just dies for a few seconds. And sometimes I've actually had it, and this was in the remake specifically, although I'm sure it was in both, is one of the man-eaters just fell off of the bridge, but he didn't fly back up. He just fell into the abyss, but he didn't die, so I just got soft-locked. So yeah, they didn't program it originally, and they clearly didn't reprogram it here. The hardest part of this boss fight is just the run-up to it, not the actual fight, because you end up in the tiniest corridor ever known to man and have to fight the stupid wizards that can just stun lock you to death. And I understand the point of this was to allow time for the PvP person to be able to spawn. However, first off, they could have still made the bridge wider, but also I can't imagine this is as much of a problem in a PS5 game, so just get rid of it. Why is it here? And then PvP fights in this game are just cancer anyway. PvP boss fights will never work, Miyazaki. Stop doing that! Okay, first off, the arena is just way too small. How do you get in here? The fight ends in 2 seconds, since once you get him on the ground, he dies instantly. I think with a bigger arena, faster and more varied attacks, along with more health, so you actually have to knock him down 2 or 3 times. This could have been an okay fight, but right now it's just pathetic. This fight overall is pretty reasonable. It's a pretty basic bitch fight, but that's fine since there's nothing outright wrong with it. I mainly just want to complain about how he looks in the remake. He barely resembles the original model, and to me showcases perfectly why more detail doesn't always equal better visuals. He looks like a sack of lard with a bunch of lumps, scars, and bruises. Well, the original was a very simple set of shapes. He was just a fat demon, that was all he is. He isn't even the right color, and his eyes were so tiny in the remake, even though I thought that was one of his more unique features in the original. They're also not the same color. Who did this? Honestly, I think one of the biggest things they could have changed for this fight in the remake is to simply just expand upon the fact that he's blind. They could have made it more advanced, so where it's like, you know, whether you're walking, running, sprinting, and how close you are and all that. Make it so it really feels like he's blind and he's trying to listen for you. I think that would be a lot better, but for the way it is right now, he pretty much just attacks wherever you attacked him. He can't really hear you unless you sprint around, basically. And then the Thief Ring makes it piss easy and unfair for him. But, I mean, other than that, I like him. He's a good fight. I just wish they would have, you know, maybe expanded upon what was already there. Now, see, this is a spectacle fight. It's not meant to be hard. It's just meant to be fun. And I think it's fun. Swinging a giant sword. I guess it's not giant. What is it? It's like it makes wind or something. I don't know. You throw a big wind beam at manta rays flying in the sky. It's fun. But I do think a couple things could have made it a bit more fun. For example, maybe some more telegraphed and more interesting attacks that are like, because right now it just shoots crystal beams at you that like you generally just can't really dodge. You just kind of tank them and then you swing your giant sword at them and get revenge. I also think the fact that Storm Ruler, once you pick it up in the back of the arena, I feel like it should just auto-equip to your right hand. Like, because you're not going to use it anywhere else, and you're not going to you're going to put it away as soon as you're done with it. So, like, there's no reason for it not to just equip as soon as you pick it up. So that way you don't have to fumble around in the inventory while you're getting shot at by manta rays. I also don't understand why Storm Ruler weighs anything, because I'm pretty sure the sword is not upgradable. Like, it does, like, moderate damage, I think, but it's not upgradable, so it doesn't matter. You're not going to use it outside of this fight. So making it weigh anything doesn't make any sense. And I also wish that you could still use the ability on the manta rays that are outside in the other parts of the level. Like, don't make it so it does a lot of damage to everything. Like, I don't want it to be overpowered. I mainly just am thinking when you go back to, like, maybe if you want to go back and explore 4-1, it'd be kind of cool if you could use the Storm Ruler's ability to get rid of the manta rays instead of having to shoot them. That could be kind of neat. But no, yeah, once you go outside of the arena, the ability doesn't work. Pretty boring boss, honestly. First, you just have to get down to him as he shoots his tactile leech missiles. Once you get to the bottom, he kind of just flails his arms around like a psychopath. The arena is also super bumpy and not fun to navigate. I think the bottom of the arena where you fight him should have been more flat and wide. I also think his moves should be more telegraphed and maybe a bit more varied. Some basic arm swinging combos would be fine, but currently he feels just very spastic. And the remake having such realistic looking leeches everywhere actually makes it a bit harder to tell where the hitbox of his arms are, kind of similar to the fire with Flame Lurker. I'm not going to say much about this one. He's a very basic, boring boss, similar to Vanguard, but worse. And the remake not changing this one is whatever, I don't care. Now this fight is peak laziness. The maiden herself is practically helpless, which is obviously intentional. However, the true fight to get to her is Garl Vinland, and he's literally just a player NPC with a big hammer and shield. The walkway in which you have to fight him has no room to move. It is as narrow as the player. I understand the purpose of this is to make it so you can't reach her without killing him first. However, I think a better solution would be to simply position Estrella in the back of an actual like flat circular arena. She could be outside the arena, inside the swamp, which can do two things. A, it can cause you to die rapidly as you try to kill her because of the plague. And it would be punishing to go there anyway because Garl would catch up since you'd be slowed by the swamp. So that way you have to fight Garl Vinland still, but you also have room to move. And then Garl Vinland himself just needs to be reworked into an actual boss, because currently he only has the 2 combos that the Great Hammers do when you use them. And he also has a tendency to parry you, and you have no way of avoiding it. He doesn't, like, he's not like the skeletons in Dark Souls or anything where he has like a stance that he gets into if you hit him during that. You parry, they parry you. No, it's just, he just parries you randomly and you can't do anything about it, and he one-shots you because he somehow stabs his entire hammer through your rectum. However you slice it, this fight is a travesty, and the fact they didn't even try to rectify it is embarrassing. This fight is also just pretty basic, but pretty good. I mainly think that he needs more attacks. Like, he has about 4, I think, and that's, you know, it's a little bit uninteresting. Like, maybe halfway through, he could get some harder to dodge, more interesting moves. Other than that, though, I think he's perfectly fine. Now, this is probably my favorite fight in the game, and what I like to consider the actual final boss, because, well, we'll get to him in a second. But he is probably the strongest boss in the game, at least in terms of his health. What I mainly have problems with is the fact that he has some glitches that were not fixed. For example, I know that apparently if you just stand still when you walk into the arena, his AI will turn off, and then you can just go up to him and poison him, and he'll never attack you. The fact that they didn't fix this is retarded. Another problem is he also sometimes will spam his giant AoE. I know it can be interrupted, but if you're kind of far away, it can be safer to just walk away from it. And I kind of wish that he would always immediately do his charge afterwards, but sometimes he'll just do it like 3 times in a row, and you just stand there and wait. But other than that, this fight is definitely the best in the game. Why is this still here? Why does he have, like, boss level health even though he doesn't fight back? Just make him one-shottable, and then we can call it a day.
We'll go over to Disney World and have a nice time. I heard that Disney World these days is pretty bad, but you know, I'm sure we can make the most of it.
Don't you just love the iconic voice acting of Demon's Souls? Honestly, every From Software game has great voice direction, and I'm so glad to get to re-experience the characters. Wait a minute. Okay. They changed the voice acting? For what purpose does this serve? The PS3 game has perfectly fine voice lines. The thing is, you can really tell how pointless redoing it is when listening to the few voices they did bring the correct voice actors for. Characters like Maiden in Black and Patches have the same actors before and say the exact same lines.
What is it? Dost thou seek soul power?
What is it? Seekest thou the power of souls?
Don't hold it against me, eh? Take your time starving to death. Then I'll sell every last trinket off your corpse. Hey, don't hold it against me, eh? Take your time starving to death. Then I'll sell every last trinket off your corpse.
Sure, the echo effects and stuff sound like a tad bit different, but otherwise they're the same. Couldn't you save so much time and money by just yoinking the original audio files? And I'm not going to sit here and shit on the actors who did their work for the remake, because all of them did it fine. Their voices are fine. I just don't understand the reasoning as to why they were hired in the first place. And there are a few voices that sound particularly off. Take a listen.
I'm Stockpile Thomas. When the scourge came, I didn't know what hit me. When I came to, I found myself here, in the Nexus.
I'm Stockpile Thomas. When the scourge came, I didn't know what hit me. When I came to, I found myself here, in this Nexus.
Thou who seeketh the king's sword, I am the old king. Show me thine strength, and the strength of thine souls.
Thou who seekest the king's sword, I am the old king. Show me thy strength, and the power of thy souls.
What be your need? If it be a blacksmith, Then show me some coin. If not, head straight for the door.
You need a blacksmith? Show me your steel. If not, head straight for the door.
Whoever the casting director was, I do want to strangle you and then lock you in my basement so you can never see the light of day again for ruining my beloved! Next, you're gonna tell me they redid the music or some shit. They actually did it. Those sick bastards changed the music. That fact alone, without even considering how the music sounds, is a cardinal sin that should be punished by euthanization of whoever was a part of this decision! The original soundtrack was so unique, yet simple. Now, if they would have just done some renditions that were mostly the same, maybe with better audio quality, I would have still been mad, but not as livid. However, they did not do that. They basically made a whole-ass new soundtrack that barely even resembles the original. At this point, I'm sure you've heard me say that a lot and think it doesn't have to be the same as the original because it might be better. And if you're thinking that right now, and I just have to say that I agree with that to an extent. I already mentioned aspects of the game that I think should have been changed and weren't. My point is that if something ain't broke, don't fix it. And out of everything this game has, the music was undoubtedly the part that needed the least improvement. So many resources were spent on this stupidly high detail visuals and music redoing that they forgot they actually needed to remake the actual game as well. Okay, I'm getting a bit off topic. Let's compare some tracks so I can tell you why it's garbage. I do also want to clarify, I don't think the new OST is bad. I actually think a lot of the tracks are extremely well made, but they don't belong here. I've already complained about the intro, so let's start there. Now, I can't say I'm too knowledgeable in music design and all that. What I can say is that I love the way the main theme sounds in the original. It's iconic. I like how there are very few instruments, but every single one is easily distinguishable. The remake takes that simplicity and spits on it with its loud and complex orchestra. Again, the song sounds good, but it is a far cry from the original composer's vision. Here's a much more jarring difference. Flame Lurker's theme. Oh my god, it's so loud! Why is it so loud? The original was quiet, slow, but sinister and tense, with a tinge of that signature sadness that FromSoft is known for. The remake makes my ears want to bleed as much as my eyes are bleeding from the fire effects! I'm not sure if they even referenced the original track when they made this one. I'm glad Armor Spider's theme at least still perfectly represents how I feel when I see a spider in real life. There are a few that I at least think tried to emulate the original. I still don't like that they changed it, but I will accept these few tracks, most notably Maiden Astraea's theme. Okay, so I've made my points. Now I'll be giving my final verdict by ranking each individual category on a scale from S, which is basically a 10 out of 10, to an F, being an absolute failure just like my father always told me I was. Overall, the visuals are a technical marvel and beautiful to look at, along with the smooth 60 FPS as opposed to the original's 30. However, I think a lot of the unique color design, along with the dark and brooding atmosphere, was lost in translation, and the particle effects like fire and magic look really ugly. Plus, the human character models just kind of look out of place. But I'll overall give the visuals a B-. Still pretty good. Now with gameplay, there are a few new convenience features and control differences that were added that smooth out the experience. My personal gripe is that not enough was done to improve it. And worst of all, a lot of the positive changes end up being negated by just more negative changes. So, gameplay, I'm going to give it a C. It's not any better, it's not really any worse. Now for bosses, unfortunately, the bosses were barely changed. And I honestly think the bosses were one of the weakest parts of the original games, so the fact they didn't even try to improve them is a real shame. In fact, the few changes that do exist for the bosses just make them worse. Like, for example, Dragon God, since they removed his obvious tell, so it's just the annoying boss is more annoying. So I'm giving it a D. Not great. Now this one makes me want to die. This aspect was completely perfect and did not need changing. Simply carrying over the audio files would have been enough, but no, they had to go and re-record every voice line and redo all the music. The most important voices retain their original actors, but however, most of the characters have completely new ones that don't even resemble the originals. The music, outside of a few tracks, completely missed the mark of what the original soundtrack was going for. Audio gets a big fat F. So, would I recommend this version over the original? Hell no! Go get a PS3 and save yourself some time and money.
I just want to get to know you better, especially if your mom died. We got we